Welcome to the Magdalene Voices, giving voice to those silenced for centuries through sacred conversations with beautiful, illuminating souls. I am your host, spiritual business coach, mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Mariaestela. I serve spiritual entrepreneurs, Magdalene's rising, and radiant beings just like you with the expansion and growth of yourself and your business, aligning you with your deep inner truth, bringing to life that which you're here to birth, and supporting you in expressing your soul's divine purpose through your being and your doing in this lifetime. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to join my newsletter to stay connected and updated. You can do so on my website, mariaestela.com, where you can also find previous episodes and their show notes. And if you have ever wondered about your Magdalene connection and calling, and whether you are a Magdalene, I invite you to download the free Magdalene Blueprint I've created for you. Go to mariaestela.com/AYM to get it. Hello, Radiant One, and a very big and a very warm welcome to today's episode of the Magdalene Voices. Truth be told, up until about a little bit more, I don't think more than an hour ago, I actually didn't know what today's episode was going to be about. And for a recovering control freak like myself, that has been quite a challenge, and it has brought up a lot of resistance. It's brought up a lot of frustration. It's brought up a lot of irritation, which just goes to show that no matter how much you do the work, there is still work for you to do. Oftentimes, I think this is actually the first time where up until actually the moment of shooting, I didn't know what I was supposed to share with you in this episode. Previously, it's been so that my guides have let me know that it's coming, you'll know, but this time they've been silent. They've been completely silent. And when your guides go silent and your intuition just seems to be malfunctioning and you seem to be all by yourself, that's when all of your training, all of your work really comes into play. Because can you, through those moments of being quote unquote blinded, can you, through those moments of frustration and irritation, continue to insist that within you lives and breathes your source, even though that you have a sense of being disconnected and blinded? Can you then continue to insist that you are love, that you are an expansion of love, created by love, here for love, with love, by love, and all of these loves? And I would love to yell and say, yes, you can. I know that you can, and I know that I have, but I'm not going to be I'm not going to glaze over it. I'm not going to let you know that it's just been a, walk in the park, because it hasn't. It hasn't at all. And I've questioned myself, and I've doubted myself. I've been frustrated, irritated. I don't think I've hit the anger. But shit has come up. And like I said, it wasn't until probably less than an hour ago that I was given, quote unquote, the episode for today. Today's episode is dedicated to and inspired by a beautiful participant in my 6-week healing journey for soul-driven, heart-based entrepreneurs called Mastery Through Love. They are currently they're about to enter their 3rd week, and her question had to do with resistance, we've been working on, first of all, connecting with our source, with our core. Then we've been working on not clearing, but we've been working on realizing our biggest fears and deepest fears and biggest dreams. And these women have been showing up so powerfully, so vulnerably, so honestly, so inspiring. And like I said, this episode is dedicated to not only that one, but the whole group of women who are bravely and courageously choosing to work with me in Mastery Through Love. Her question had to do with the framework or the levels of resistance that you meet. And especially, I would say, internal resistance, and especially when you have a big dream or a big vision that has been showing up for you. So in this episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through those different levels or phases or stages, whatever you want to call them, that I see, and in the hopes that you can feel inspired or empowered by them, and actually also know what to do if you find yourself in either of these stages. So I like to use the analogy of having, in terms of resistance, I like to use the analogy of having gravel in your shoe. In phase one, the gravel hits, that's when you begin. And this is a phase, I would say, that comes after you've realized that you've got something that is calling you. There's something that you are currently not doing or working with. You can have the most wonderful, amazing job, or have a business that really you love and that thrives. But there is something else that is calling you. Or you can actually also be at the other, you can have a job that you do not like, and you know that there is something deeper that is calling you. And once you've acknowledged that or, looked at that, that's when the resistance perhaps begins to show up. And in phase one, and I want to say that you can also, it doesn't, like, I'm going through these phases in a numbered sequence. However, you don't necessarily, as you will see as I go through them, you don't necessarily have to go through all of them. You may have, there's no time in the sense of, you're in this phase for X amount of time, and then you're in this phase for 3 months or whatever. You can actually go from 0 to 100 in an instant. Depending on how much how much this is calling you. And I will share more about that as we go through them, because and use some personal examples that I've that has come up for me in terms of resistance. So phase one is where gravel comes into your shoe. There's a piece of gravel, and you can actually, you're able to ignore it. You can still, move about your day and do your thing. You can still do your job or work in your business. There's no problem. You can just, that it's there, but it doesn't really, you can still choose to ignore it. Phase two is when you're starting to feel sore. There comes a time when you're starting to feel sore, and you have moments where, like, the moments are longer, where you're like, but you can still kind of choose to ignore. You can carry the pain or the resistance with you. And then in phase three is when the blister starts to strike, and that when you're in that phase, you're more easily triggered, and you may not know why you're triggered, or you may not know why you're frustrated. You may not relate it back to, it's because I'm actually suppressing a part of myself, or a dream that I have, a vision that I have, and that's why I get frustrated in all these areas. Because you don't connect, you don't see that you being upset with your partner or your children, or for someone that passes you by on the street, or someone who's wearing the wrong color, or whatever else it is, someone who says the wrong thing to you, and then later you realize, oh, they didn't really say the wrong thing, it was just you being triggered. But you don't necessarily connect it back to, oh, it's because there is a part of me that I'm actually ignoring or suppressing. There's a dream that I have, or vision that I have, that I'm not allowing, I'm not giving it air, I'm not letting it breathe. And if you don't do that with a blister, then it becomes infected. And then the infection is phase 4. And I'm sorry if this is becoming very graphic, but I hope this serves you. So the phase 4 is the phase where, typically this is the phase where you begin to become aware that you are perhaps self-sabotaging, that you are whether it be most likely you will start to become conscious about you have this vision, you have this dream, and you're not doing something about it, and you will probably begin to question yourself. You begin to question, am I actually self-sabotaging, and what do I do about that if I am self-sabotaging? And then phase 5 is that's when you become impaired. That's when the blister has gone, turned from just a small sore to being infected, to actually be, impairing your sense of walking, your ability to walk, your ability to be in this world, and you begin to experience, most likely you begin to experience physical symptoms. Now, if this is the first time that you've heard about the mind-body connection, then, go Google it, because there's, plenty. I'm not an expert, but there's plenty of people out there who've written books and about how the mind is actually in control of the body, and how that connection happens. So if you are someone who's actively suppressing or ignoring your visions and your dreams, and if you keep doing that, shit will show up in your life, whether it be by disease or illness and heartache or whatever it is, it will show up. And one thing that is incredibly important to stress is that it is not your quote unquote fault. You did not bring this upon yourself, nor did someone, nor did an external force. It wasn't God or the universe who brought this upon you. It's simply a part of the path. And it's simply a part of, your learning experience. And I truly wish it wasn't so. But I also know what happens as you go through that. When you choose, if you're listening to this, chances are that you are, not chances, you are ready to hear it. You're ready to do something about it. And I hope this inspires you to take action in some form or another. And it can be a tiny thing, or it can be a huge step. That's really up to you. In terms of physical symptoms, I wanted to share with you, because as I said in the beginning, there's not really a matter of how much time do you spend in each phase. I know that when my biggest dream from the time when I was a little girl, the earliest that I can remember is 12, was that I wanted to move to California. And I never knew and understood why. I do now, but for years and years and years, I held back. Then in December of 2014, I decided, I am going to make this happen. I am no longer going to let myself be held back. And that was I think I made that choice in November of 2014. And no more than 2 weeks after that, my back went out. If you look at the mind-body connection, the back is your, foundation. It's your core, is your sense of security and stability, and it's also that lower part of your body has to do with the foundational chakras of your energy system. So knowing what I know now, it makes perfect sense. Knowing what I did then, I was I didn't understand. I've always been very active, and I still am, but I couldn't understand, like, I'd made this choice, and I didn't, truth be told, at the time, it wasn't until about, I would say, 9 to 10, perhaps even 12 months later, that I made the connection. So my big vision and my big dream was so big that it actually created an energetic shift within me. And there was a lot of resistance. Resistance is based in fear. So I went straight to, this was such a big quote unquote shock to my system that I had a physical reaction to it. And that I then spent a lot of time healing and taking care of, and serving it. And it wasn't until I really, added love and love and love. And that leads me into what is the solution. So if you found yourself in any of these phases, or you find yourself in one of these phases, as always, my answer is going to be love is the way. And what I mean by love is the way is that you acknowledge and accept and love yourself. And even that you love and accept and acknowledge your resistance, that you show that part of yourself the same kind of compassion and care and listening, that you show up for that part of yourself, because that part of yourself is simply someone who is about to go through a transformation into becoming what you already are. And that may sound crazy, but when you find yourself in either of these phases or stages or levels, then disavowing it or suppressing it or ignoring it or pushing yourself, forcing yourself, coercing yourself is not going to work. It may work for a while. You may be able to push through it. You may be able to just do it and, fake it till you make it. But in my experience, what happens is it will just pop up in another area. It is only through the expansion of love within that you can dissolve the fear so that you make sure that it doesn't occur again. Now, as I said, I started out by sharing how frustration had come up for me, how irritation had come up for me, but the level, like the energetic level with which they have shown up has been, on a scale from 1 to 10, where I was previously would have been on a 10, I would be blaming myself, I would be shaming myself, I would be guilting myself, I would be bullying myself, I would be kicking myself, I would be angry with myself, I would be all of these things for not knowing what to put in today's episode. All of these things would have shown up for me before. Today, like I said, it was frustration, it was irritation, and then there was the idea of, okay, I am going to surrender this, and I'm going to keep surrendering, because to me, that is the love-based way of living, of being. That doesn't mean that I don't take action. It doesn't mean that I don't move forward. It just means that I trust fully that what is to come will come, even when I feel blinded, even when I feel left alone or lost. I choose to come back into that space where I know all of the answers are. I was going to say are hidden, but they're not really hidden. They're there all the time. If you feel they're hidden, it's because of you have to lift the veil so you're able to see it. So, like I said, love is the way in terms of these different phases. If you have, and also, love is the way. And when I say love is the way, there is a step that I want you to take. It's about tuning out and tuning in. So if you have a vision or a big dream or something that has been calling you for a long while, something that you probably know will shake your world and change your world as you know it. It may be in a personal relationships. It may be, your business. It may be work-wise. Usually these are things that are so big that they actually will create transformation and change in all of these areas. If that is what you sense, my encouragement to you is to be still and listen and allow for that part of yourself to be heard. Allow yourself to give space and voice to that part of yourself so that you can hear what it is, and know this, and know that you may not know the full picture. You may not see the end, and you don't need to. What you need to do is take the first step. And I can't tell you what that first step is. The way that when I work with people, what usually happens is when we become still, and it happens for me as well, when we become still, there is something that arises. Be open. So I like to say, be willing. Like, for you to do this, it requires two key pieces. It requires your willingness and your discipline. Discipline is actually something that has been, coming up for me a lot lately. Willingness has been with me for a long time, but the discipline of choice is something that has been coming up a lot. Like I said, a lot for me lately. So your willingness to be still, your willingness to listen, your willingness to not necessarily know or see the full picture, your willingness to take the first step, and then your discipline in working those muscles, your discipline in taking action, your discipline in making sure that you take care of your self-care. So discipline in returning to your core and your center, your source, your space of love continually. Because if you're going to run a marathon, you're not going to put on your shoes and just run a marathon. You're going to work at it. You're going to get, kilometers or miles in your legs before attempting to do 42 point whatever it is, kilometers that it is. And it's the same thing with this. As your big vision or your dream is your marathon. And with every step that you take, with every kilometer or mile you get into your legs and your body, you expand and you become more and more and more present. You become more and more well-functioning. You become more and more aware of what is needed, and that makes you take that next step and next step and next step. So for some reason, all of the analogies today are about walking and running and gravel in your shoe. So this is what I do in my work. I support people in bringing to life their big vision, supporting them in expressing their soul's divine purpose. If you would like my support in this, you're more than welcome to go ahead and apply. You can apply for a free discovery session by going to my website, mariaestela.com/apply. And also, if you haven't already, I have what's called Divine Clarity and Inspired Action. It's a free guide that you can download so that if you cannot hear or you would like more clarity, if you have a lot of moving pieces that don't seem to fit together, you can go ahead and download that free guide, and that can help you kind of organize, structure what is going on so that you will be able to see a clear picture. You will be able to gain a clear picture, and you will know what is my next step, because the journey is all about one step at a time. You don't take 1,000 steps all at once, even though we would love to. But it is all about taking that one step at a time. Um, yes. So, like I began, this episode was inspired by someone who reached out to me and said, "Could you expand on this? Do you have a framework for this?" so that she could understand it. And I want you to know that if you have something that you would like for me to expand upon or something that you would like my take upon, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and let me know. You can use the contact page on my website, and I'll be more than happy to give it a look and see if it's something that I can actually or feel wise enough to share upon. So, like I said, love is the way. Today's episode is going to be not necessarily a long one, but I hope it's going to be a powerful one, and I hope that it serves you. So that is what I had for you today. Know that I love you. Thank you for listening. That is what I had for you in today's episode of the Magdalene Voices. For all of the deeds and the details, find the show notes on my website, Mariaestela.com. Know that I would love to hear how it resonated with you and what you got from it. So tag me on Instagram or leave me a comment on either my website or YouTube. Finally, if it served you, please take a moment to share it with a friend or on social media. God bless.